Hey guys, back again with another review video, this time changing gears significantly and going to be looking at a figure kit. This time we're going to be looking at Bandai's Fumina Figurize Labo kit. Why this is technically a non-scale figure, to look at the sizing of everything, it looks to be somewhere between 1/8 and 1/7 in terms of her scaling. So split difference, call it about 1/7.5. So let's open her up and take a look. Okay. Now, one of the things about this series of kits is that they do a interesting process in terms of how they do the molds. They do a multicolored overlay injection mold, starting with obviously our shadow color and then applying the base skin tone over that. Now this is in theory supposed to give a more lifelike and appearance to the skin, and for the most part it is quite convincing. Here we can look at the main torso section, and hopefully a lot of this will show up on camera. May need to, and again on the leg. Now for most part it is quite convincing. Another thing to note also is that surprisingly has almost more of the heft that you would expect from a resin kit in terms of just how solid it feels. But where this thing runs into a bit of a problem is that it means you have additional gates that you need to trim. And as you can see for the torso, they did try to minimize it a little, but we still have a total of 3 for the skin color and then an additional 4 for the rest of the shadow color. Now for a regular kit, not so much an issue, but here I do question, how thick a layer is the skin tone. As you can see here, it's not super thick, so obviously this is going to present challenges when it comes to cleaning these gates up. Now another thing, and I don't know how well this will show up on camera, is there are fairly pronounced seam lines around all of these parts, so that's another thing you're going to have to clean up. Now, continuing on with this part, we've got our 2 arms and part of the neck. Now, interestingly, they did not use that process like we saw on the leg with the undertoning of the shadow. They just did straight skin tone. So, and you can, and again, not sure how well this will show up on camera, kind of see the difference with the torso part having a much more lifelike look as opposed to the flat of the arms. So that is interesting. Could just be I got a bad copy that it didn't properly mold, or it could be is the case. Which, no, if it is that they didn't do it for the arms, that is unusual and does take away a little. Now, continuing on to our next leg, and I'll try and this does give a better idea of detailing, and hopefully such as toes and nails and all that. So for a plastic kit, no, they did do a great job in detailing it out. The kit also comes with a sort of splashing water base, which is fairly nice. Obviously cleaning it up and is going to be a pair since it's all clear plastic, but should look quite nice when done. Now another thing, and this is an issue I've found on similar kits, which we'll review at another date, is that they include the makeup and some of the other detailing on it. They don't include like a separate decal. So that is something to be aware of if you choose to go the painting route, which I honestly think you're probably going to have to, given the thickness of the skin layer. Which, doing it this way, you're basically sort of forced to you either paint it and lose the some of the detailing, or do you leave the detailing and get stuck with some bad mold lines and gate marks. So that is something to be aware of. Well, continuing on, next up we've got our eye parts, which I do think they did a fairly good job in terms of how they chose to do it, with the retinas being done in clear plastic, which gives a surprisingly lifelike appearance as opposed to traditional decaling. But in an interesting choice, they chose to do one of the print parts on the swimsuit as a separate part instead of like a sticker or just, something molded in. So that is unusual. And then obviously we also have a zipper, but it's sort of a grayish plastic instead of what one would expect, a more silver color. Last up, we've got our last sprue, which includes the main swimsuit, which is a very glossy, almost, I'm trying to think of the right type of material to call it. Sort of more rubbery or latex-like appearance, and surprisingly does a convincing job of emulating that. I'm also happy with how they broke down the parts, where the only possible place where you might have an issue of having to clean up a gap would be here at the neckline, as otherwise they have additional other color parts that fill in these side gaps quite nicely. We also have obviously our breakdown of the hair, which isn't too complex, but still provides some level of challenge. Could be a little more detailed in terms of individual hair follicles and whatnot, but that's kind of more of a nitpick. And obviously a hair scrunchie. So let's get this back in and we'll move on to our instruction sheet. Now, thankfully, this kit is fairly simple to put together. You almost don't need the instruction sheet. Basically, it starts building up from the legs and sort of assembling from bottom to top for obviously attaching to the base. The only issue being with some of the assembly of the hair is that's going to be a little more complicated. So, overall, for a first-time kit, as this is the first, I guess, hopefully in a series of kits they're going to do, I think they did a lot of things right. In terms of sculpt and positioning, it's an interesting and dynamic look to it. What I think they kind of both goofed and did right is with the shadowing. By not doing it over the entirety of both the arms and the neck, that kind of does take away, as you have these arms that are basically sticking out, looking sort of lifeless in terms of skin tone. But at the same time, if you're just going to build straight, it does simplify things a little. So overall, I think it's a good first start, but there's a lot of things that they could do better so as to improve on the next one, whatever that may be. Main issue right now is actually finding this kit. I lucked out. I actually picked her up at Anime Expo this year from the Bluefin booth, as that's been quite literally the only place I've seen it in stock anywhere. So that was a look at Bandai's Fumina Figurize Labo kit. A good first run kit that hopefully they take some of the lessons and build upon those for whatever comes next in this line. As to find something outside of resin for figure kits is basically non-existent. And I would say if you're a Gundam fan, definitely pick this one up if you can find it. And if you do find it, don't hesitate, as it will be gone quite quickly. So until next time.